All right, what's up, everybody? This is George C.O.C. Samuels, aka the Digital Wayfinder, and today I am with the very lovely Kate Lyman, who is a nutrition coach. Had the pleasure of meeting here in Oaxaca, know her, her family, and I thought it'd be great for us to have a chat about her business and also everything to do with AI at the moment because we've been having some conversation. We've been working together, and I think Kate has a very unique perspective on what's going on in the space. So, Kate, over to you. Maybe just give an introduction, anything else that I might have missed, and we'll go from there.
Well, I hope I have anything unique to share. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, how fun is it to talk to someone also in Oaxaca? Like that's not usually how it
Yeah,
goes, right? It's fun.
100%.
Um, yeah, so I own a nutrition coaching business. I've had it for about 10 years now. Not about, a little over 10 years. I provide one-on-one nutrition coaching for my clients, and I have 6 other coaches who work alongside me. We are all very experienced and kind of have different like niches, but I run the business, so I bring all our clients in. I match them with the best coach, whether that's myself or someone else, and we all do very personalized nutrition coaching, and AI has crept in and it's left us being like, okay, what do we do? Because we're very human coaches, right? Like we don't even use it's online. It's online. It has been for 10 years. But other than that, like we haven't I think we're all a little scared of the AI, basically. That's where I'm coming from. That's where my team is coming from, like recognizing it's here to stay. We should, lean into that, but also how do we put what we do as coaches, which
Yeah,
is a very aggressively empathetic process
yeah,
of working with people. How do we maintain all of that and utilize AI maybe for processes in the business, but not let it touch what we do as far as coaching?
yeah, 100%. And, social media was like 10, 15 years ago when it really started to take off, right? After the internet for all of us. And what have you seen change the most, I guess, in the social media landscape? And your business is, I remember when we were working together, we were talking about how it's very much, you've got a newsletter that you've been doing, right? Is that every week for the last 10
Yeah.
years?
hmm
Yeah.
So the blog
Yeah.
is like they've done that every year or every week for 8 years now.
Wow.
Newsletter, I've been a little spottier, but probably every week for 7 years now.
Yeah. I mean, that's why for most people, it's funny, even now, people still, I think, get shocked when people are able to be consistent for more than like, what, 30 days, you know? And you've been doing
It's
this
hard.
for 8 years.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
So why now in terms of AIs? Because obviously it's on most people's minds, but for you personally, why now?
I can admit to being like fearful and of
Yep.
AI. I mean, I don't know if fearful is the right word, but like skeptical rather. I,
Yep.
I feel
Yep.
skepticism. I am very tuned into like the environmental impact, and that is like makes me be like, ooh, okay, how do I want this to show up for me? But at the same time, I don't believe that like fear should make us run away from something, right? Like
Yeah.
the best thing I
Yeah.
can do for me and how my brain works and how I want my business to work is okay, let me learn more and understand where this can be helpful for me and leave the stuff that's not helpful for me. So I understand that AI doesn't just mean like plugging things into ChatGPT and it spits out
Yeah.
whatever, right? Because it's so much more
Yeah.
than that. And that's why talking with you has been like, okay, what does AI even mean for
Yeah.
me? And where can it be something that helps me? Because it's not all ChatGPT, it's like systems and streamlining and all that.
Yeah.
But I've needed someone who actually understands it because I do have friends in the business space who are like, I'm learning everything about the AI on my own, like self study and stuff. And I also just like do not have the capacity. I barely have the
Yep.
capacity to like do the minimum just because I'm so busy. So that has
Yep.
been like, why now? Why AI? Wanting to
Yeah.
lean into that discomfort and figure out how can this support me instead of being like, oh, that's scary. I won't touch it.
Yeah. And I think what's also interesting, right, when we talked initially is that even though you're busy, you're not just wanting to plug AI in for the sake of it. Because yes, it can make things more efficient, it could free up time, but it seems like you enjoy what you do. And I'd love for you to talk about that because I think a lot of people mistake busyness for productivity. But if you are someone like yourself, if you are busy, but you're enjoying what you're doing, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
Right. And I mean, I'm not here to toot my own horn necessarily, but I do think
Yeah.
something I can say with confidence is I don't I'm not unproductive. I have a lot of
Yeah.
systems down for myself already, and I'm very regimented in how I work. And
Yep.
because I love my work, it's not a bad thing. Like you said, like I love
Yep.
what I do. And so leading into AI a little bit more has been understanding what are the capabilities and where do I even care to add that to, what I do? Because there are some things where I'm like, it would be less productive to like throw another system in here and kind of like change what I'm doing. And there's places where you will be learning like, oh, this could be
Yeah.
way simpler if I
Yep.
utilize some AI here. So it's been a big learning process of like just because there's all these new technologies and capabilities doesn't mean I actually have to adopt all of them. Some of them don't make sense for me. And
Yeah.
I can't say I'll feel this way forever, but how I feel around the coaching we do right now is the time it takes to like write up notes and write down like that is essential for us feeling super connected with clients. Like if I were to automate a process like that, I wouldn't have that same level of connection. And one of the things about how we work with our clients is typically we have like a 3, 6, or 12-month minimum, usually six
Mm.
6 months, but our average retention is about 14 months. So we're usually
Yeah.
sticking with our clients for a long time. And like that requires a lot of like trust building, getting to know the person. And so
Yeah.
I've been conscious of like, okay, well, there could be more efficiency in some of these processes in client communications and stuff, but that not actually like what aligns with my business. Let's use it somewhere else.
And the funny thing is that I think your approach is actually what is going to end up causing you, if you decide to, actually be able to charge more of a premium. Because as AI is making things easier to do, it is bumping up the value of like human contact and relationships. And I've been noticing this. But I think another thing that I find interesting is that, from your posts on Instagram, your style of coaching and what you advise people on is actually, I can see a lot of similarities, even the way that I approach technology in terms of it's like conscious awareness of everything, right? And that you don't always have to take in the tips from the gurus, right? You got to kind of trust yourself and trust your own intuition. So, yeah, do you have anything to say on that? And maybe share a bit of your style and approach for those who might be interested in your services too.
I think we're super aligned on that because I'm about intention and awareness, and that's like kind of what I talk to my clients about. Like I have a lot of knowledge and I'm not going to just shove
Yeah,
it at you because it doesn't make sense. Like that I'm just another voice overwhelming you. Let's figure out what you need, what you think, what you like. And that's
exactly.
where like general recommendations can't touch a one-on-one approach because everyone's needs are different. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very aware of like the internet, which is where most people get their nutrition information at this point, by the way.
Yeah.
The internet is
Yeah.
incredibly overwhelming. There is so much misinformation. There's so much conflicting correct information. And so our
Yep.
goal as consumers of that information around nutrition, and I think this is true for you with AI, is to
Yep.
understand how to be conscious consumers, know what we're reading and seeing, understand
Yep.
how to take what applies to us and integrate into our lives, and then also understand that, that can be right, that person's post or whatever, but it doesn't really make sense for me and my lifestyle, so I'm gonna let that go. So I am like my background is in education and that's what some of my degrees are in. So I'm really big on educating. Let's explain if someone says to me a post like, is this right? I'm like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's right or what's less accurate and what that means for you. Because especially when it comes to like information and things we consume, it's not about like that's right, that's wrong. Like it's not that cut and dry. There's often a lot of
Correct.
nuance. And so helping people be conscious consumers of information and of food helps
Yeah,
them like become their own expert.
100%. And as you said, this is probably why we ended up, working a little together because I think our values are aligned in that sense. Like what you're doing for food and nutrition, I'm essentially doing the same thing for tools and technology, And so our knowledge, our expertise are in those areas, but it's really just becoming more consciously aware of our choices. And what's been the most interesting shift that you've noticed from your customers and clients over the 8 years since you started? And has any of that been influenced by what's been happening online or just, I don't know, maybe an evolution of the business itself?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's totally been influenced online. So I started coaching in 2015. I don't even think I was on Instagram until 2017. But when we think of, the landscape of social media over the past, like we can just call it like past 5 years, there's so much more coming at us. Reels have had a big part of that, and so information comes at us faster. People with a variety of certifications and knowledge can say stuff to you, and so the information overwhelm has been so much greater. And so a lot of times, or I'd say most of the time, we get a client and we're working with, okay, they think they need to do 1,000 different things to work on their nutrition. And we have to pare that back and understand what is relevant to them, what they may, like old beliefs they may be holding that aren't probably supported to them at all. And like how we can create new behaviors and habits that support them. But if I think of some of my clients from 9, 10 years ago, I'm like, we weren't, maybe they were reading like a paleo blog or read a diet book from Barnes and Noble, but they weren't blasted with all this info all the time. And I think once, like probably a year after Reels came into being, that got just like exponentially more noticeable. And now it's like everyone comes in with like, help. 20,000 people are telling me 20,000 different things to do, and I don't know what to do at all. And I'm kind of frozen in this like state of paralysis.
Yeah. Has the same thing that's happened with, tech and information online in terms of just so much of it being available, is that being reflected in our purchasing options for food and nutrition? Is there also issues because there's a lot of, different brands for just one simple food item?
I think so. I mean, think of something like a protein supplement or electrolyte supplement. Those are two things I pull out because they're like very popular right now. And there is an excess of options. And if you listen to a podcast, it's probably going to have like one of those as a sponsor at some point, especially in any health and fitness realm. There are so many options. Everyone is saying this is the one you need. And it becomes that overwhelm of like, well, they said I need this one because it's grass-fed whey protein, but they said I need this one because it's plant-based and blah, blah, blah. Like it just adds the overwhelm. And I think, yeah, it's the consumption of information. It's the consumption of products too, especially because there's so many to choose from.
Fascinating. Because in the AI space, there's this guy that I follow, Brian Romilly, and he actually talks about how they have found that large language models that have been essentially consuming, and I'm tying this in with the food stuff. So all these large language models ingest data, right? And in the West, they found that the data is the equivalent of junk food, because if you have a lot of junk data that's being ingested, it increases the hallucination of the LLM models. And I'm wondering now, with all the talk of like mental health, is it the same thing, right? Like our physical foods, is it because that there's a lot of junk that exists as well? Has that also been causing us to have hallucinations or mental health issues or something of the sort?
Well, like a little bit of, I'm a very evidence-based practitioner, so I care a lot
Yeah.
about like making sure that everything I say is grounded in what we know of the literature. But so hyper palatable foods are foods that are like typically ultra processed. Say they've got a good, delicious combination of like fat and sugar, or
Yeah.
like salty and sweet, and we want to eat them. It's like chips, cookies, like the delicious stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we eat foods like that, which like I'm not saying never eat it, but we don't want to like subsist off it. When we eat foods like, we are less likely to understand our hunger and fullness cues. So we're less likely to
Mm,
understand, oh, actually I'm full, I should stop eating, but we keep eating anyway. And we are
yeah.
more likely to have cravings for more foods like that, rather than then going back to like, oh, well, I had my chips. Now I should
Yeah.
have some veggies or whatever. It's like, well, I had chips and now I can't stop eating them because they're literally engineered to make me eat them more. And now don't it would be
Exactly.
nice like if I had some candy with this too, so I can get my sweet in. So it's kind of
Yeah.
the same thing. And I did actually like an infographic today about the LLMs consuming like brain rot content and spitting it back up
Yes.
versus consume like it was like slop tweets versus long form, less engaged tweets. And then it was the less
Yes.
engaged longer. They were like, they put out more helpful information. So I think there's a huge
Super.
parallel there, actually.
And yeah, right. As we're talking about, I'm like, my gosh, yeah, there is actually like some pretty strong correlations there. It also made me think about how in like the YouTube circles, I've been noticing more and more YouTubers talk about creating smaller channels, but like highly targeted. And so now it's these smaller channels that before were all about the attention and likes, but now these smaller channels actually have higher sales, even though the engagement might be low. And it's really fascinated me because, again, parallels, right? In the LLM space, at the beginning, the assumption was large language models scale up and have big data, everything. But then now they're realizing these small language models are a lot more efficient. They consume tokens way better, and nutrition kind of similar. So I wonder if we just if we just substitute the food for information, we're kind of seeing similar behavior.
I think so. That's pretty cool,
Yeah.
actually. We didn't come
Yeah.
into this podcast planning to talk about that, but it's a fun parallel.
Nope. I think we need a blog post after this
We
because very relevant. Very relevant. All right. And so in terms of the foreseeable future, right? We've obviously been talking about the AI stuff. You've been testing things out with Notion, right? I wanted to talk more about Notion, right? So what's the current situation and relationship with Notion? Why has it been of interest? And yeah, what's been sort of the challenges or struggles with it?
Okay, it's been really hard. Luckily, we have a meeting later to talk about this more, you and I. But I, so I've gone into basically this year thinking, okay, how can I organize some of my systems? I've been in business 10 years. Anyone who's a small business owner, especially maybe online, knows that like there are points where you just cobble together what you need and make it work. And then you find yourself like 7 years later still using a process that you're like, this is not good at all, but I don't have the bandwidth to change it. So a huge goal of mine this year has been to like kind of bring all of or a lot of different systems and processes, SOPs, whatever, into a central place that makes sense for my team, that makes sense for me. I have a lot of, I'm like spread quite thin in all the different websites or software I'm using, plus all the different virtual assistants I have or contractors. So I've been like, okay, how can I bring this into a central space? Notion is what I chose because I already had some stuff set up in it. And I thought, okay, we know that it continues to breed more capabilities. And if I can't do something in it right now, I'll probably be able to do it eventually or hopefully.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it has been good because I have been able to do that streamlining stuff. And it has been really hard for me because I think the nature of Notion that so much is possible leads me really stuck trying to figure out what to do and how to do it.
Same
so what I
problem,
ended up
overwhelm,
doing,
of course.
yes, same overwhelm. So I've actually hired someone, an online business manager, to help me with this problem, with this problem and solution, so that I'm able to say, okay, I have the vision. This is what I think I want this to do. Figure out how to do it, or give me 3 options of how we could do that, and then let's like tweak and then let's implement. So that's been really helpful because I'm trying to learn as much as I can as I go, and I am because I'm doing a lot of the stuff myself too. And I'm recognizing my goal is to have it all there and learn how to use it there, and not necessarily to know every backend capability of Notion, because that's not where my work actually belongs. Most of what I do is still work with my clients and support and manage my team. And so the systems and the admin stuff needs to stay a minority part of what I do in a way. But I know I'm getting there, right? It's just it's learning any new skill. This is true for AI, technology, for nutrition, for whatever. It takes practice. And practice can be really frustrating, but it gets easier. So I don't know if that answered the question.
No, it did. And I think also what is changing is, I was just listening to a video earlier today where they're talking about some of the latest updates from across all the popular AI companies, right? So OpenAI launched their Atlas browser, so bringing ChatGPT stuff straight into the browser experience. Claude has launched both Skills, is a new feature, and I think Claude Code on desktop. Now, what this is moving towards is essentially the human being. It looks like the behavior I'm noticing is that they want to enable human beings simply just to talk to the AI in a way where it will just get it, right? So the way that you're delegating to somebody else, like the business manager, to help with all this sort of stuff, they can still there to orchestrate for you. And then for you, you might not even need to touch Notion as much in the future if they start, all that orchestration stuff is happening in the background, because it should just know, right? And that's what they're trying to get to. It's like these AI systems will integrate everything, and it will analyze your patterns of behavior, and then it should just know what you're trying to achieve. And in Notion, it has been building up in that sense where I can actually type to Notion AI, hey, I'm creating a database that actually does this step by step in the automation flow. And it's setting everything up in a way that I hadn't seen before. And that is the stuff that often you would need Notion specialists, right, to
Yeah.
help you out with. But they're making it easier and easier. So you just chat to it your intention. So all you have to do is just be very good at giving clear instructions.
Yeah, and I think that's where I've been a little stymied in like figuring out, okay, I don't even know all what Notion does, so I don't know how to give it
Yep.
instructions because I don't even know what I want, but I'm figuring it out. I'm getting there, and it just a little bit. I'm getting there little by little.
Hey, I mean, clearly, right? And to any folks who be watching this or listening in, you're still able to have your business, right? You're still able to manage people even without all of this technical stuff sorted. And I think that's what people forget. They get caught up in the shiny and then you.
Yeah, and I think even you saying like, okay, now there's this Atlas thing or this Claude thing. Maybe this won't be my approach forever, but I've really had to be like head down. I use Notion and I
Yep.
use ChatGPT for a few things. And I'm not going to worry about what's new or this or that because it gets really overwhelming again. It gets very like, gosh, well, should I be doing that? Like, I almost question what I'm doing already. And it feels distracting, right? Like, I can't even get as much done if I'm like, well, now I need to explore this or that or that. Like, maybe there's a
Yeah.
time for it. But I take a really similar approach in like Instagram. I mute everyone. I don't want to see what
Yep.
anyone else is doing. Like, I don't even want to know what's going on. I
Yep.
just want to like get on, do what I need to do, answer the message I need to answer, and then move on with my life. And so I've been a
Yep.
little bit the same, like head down, focus on what I need to do because the comparison gets really real. Like, oh, well, this person's doing this over here on this platform or whatever. And it's not
Yeah.
always helpful. It can be really distracting and like unproductive. Not always,
Yep.
but sometimes.
Were you always like that, or did you have to develop that discipline with Instagram?
Oh, I've totally had to develop it because I noticed like, oh, I have a lot of, colleagues in the same or similar space and I'll see them doing like, oh,
Yep.
should I be doing that? Like, they're so-and-so's doing this. Do I need to do that? And I have to be like, oh, well,
Yeah.
if I figure it out myself, then I can do that thing. But I don't need to see what anyone else is doing because what I have is actually working.
Yep.
And I have a business mentor and I have like a mastermind group or a part of like, I have people I can go to bounce ideas off. It doesn't need to be a stranger on the internet or on social media.
100%. When I was working corporate, I remember dealing with when we were training colleagues across different teams, there would always be a segment that would be worried about not keeping up with everything and feeling dumb for it, right? And a lot of the times I wonder where that, stems from. Could be childhood stuff, who knows, insecurities, whatever. But being able to first be aware that that's even happening for yourself and then curb it, I see that sort of behavior would probably exist for your clients as well. And so how do you help them out with that? Because I feel like your advice on the nutrition side is going to be useful for people in the tech.
Yeah, I mean, similar to kind of what I said, like we understand from a nutritional perspective that everyone's needs are different and not just from like how much calories, protein, and fiber everyone needs. Like, yeah, obviously that's individualized, but how we implement behavior change to meet those needs given a different lifestyle or stressors or time demands or whatever. So
Yeah.
when someone's like, well, my sister-in-law now just started GLP-1, now should I be doing that? That's, current like a weight loss injection that's very popular in the US specifically. Like, should I be doing that? It's like, okay, well, good for her that she's doing that. Let's talk about what that means for you. Because it is just
Yeah.
we have to think about your actual needs, your capacity, time, bandwidth, whatever, your lifestyle, your stressors, your sleep, your patterns, etc. And I think it's like, I could see someone, to bring it back to the parallel, launching some Black Friday membership or whatever in their business and like, oh, maybe I should do that. But like, what does my business need right now? What is my capacity to do that? Like, what would that even do for me, right? I have to bring it in and be like, oh, good for them. That's great. I'm cheering them on. That doesn't actually make sense for me. So the coaching is very similar in saying, okay, well, you can ask those questions. Like, of course, we want to explore and we want to pay attention and be curious, but like, let's bring it back down to you and your needs.
Has there been any consistent theme or pattern you've observed amongst your clients when it comes to being able to, one, change behavior and then maintain it over time?
I mean, the time helps. I'm not like big on expectation setting. And from the get go, when I
Yes.
work with a client, I say, look, my goal is that, a lot of the people we work with have fat loss goals or maybe performance
Yeah.
goals. We work with a lot of competitive athletes or a lot of people who have, an aesthetic goal or whatever. My goal is that you reach these goals and that we do it in a way that is safe, that is sustainable, and that sets you up
Mm.
with skills and habits that you can maintain long term after coaching is over. So
Yep.
I think we could get to your, say, fat loss or performance goal like in the next X amount of months here. But then I want us to have time together to practice maintaining that progress you made on your own so that you come out on the other side of the coaching relationship feeling really good about like your ability to fly solo. So many people, especially I guess in the nutrition or fitness space, are like come from a cycle of chronic dieting. And they've like, ooh, new
Yeah.
shiny thing. Now I low carb. Now I carnivore. Now I paleo. Now I do this or that. And so
Mm.
my expectation setting is, hey, I really want us to break that cycle because I don't think it's helpful for you. It hasn't, I mean, you're
Mm.
here, so it hasn't done what you needed it to do. So here's how we break that cycle. It's a little more time spent on the maintenance of your habits and behaviors than
Mm.
than you have allowed for in the past. But it's kind of why we have a longer retention time. And
Mm.
we follow up with our clients like once they're on their own. We do like a really, really, really thorough offboard and like make a little their own like little book of all the things that they've learned and need and whatever.
Cute.
And we follow up later and we're most of the time the feedback is, I'm good. Like we did what we
Mhm.
needed. Now I've got it. So I think it's the
Exactly.
expectation setting that change takes a lot longer than we think. Not the
Yep.
actual change, but the maintenance of changing our habits and behaviors, which we often overlook,
Exactly.
right? Like that's the part we forget about because we
Yeah.
often like want to hop to something new.
Wow. 100%. And I think, to wrap up, I think there's a lot. I think the most interesting thing about our conversation is the parallels between our seemingly separate fields in terms of behavior change and stuff, right? But yeah, in terms of like the final question is, what do you wish people would ask you about when, approaching you to get help, but they don't? And how do you see AI either helping or hindering that aspect?
Gotta think about this for a moment.
You take that.
I think I wish people would ask me more instead of like how long to reach my 10-pound weight loss goal. Like, what will what can I do that's going to be most helpful for me in getting there? Because
Hmm.
a lot of times it's very like outcome focused. Like, when will I
Yeah.
see that number on the scale? But what is far more important is like, what do I actually have to do? What's my input to create that outcome,
Yeah.
right? What I say
Mm.
always is communication. Like that is my takeaway from when I talk to a client or my advice really when I talk to a client, like communication is actually what is most important because there will be plateaus or slow moments in progress or frustrating moments in progress or deviations from your routine and norm. And that's okay. It's going to happen. That's life. But if we communicate through it, we know how to get through those sticky points. The only way we cannot get through those sticky points is if we don't communicate. Like as if
Yeah.
if I as a coach don't know what's going on or they're not sharing, what's feeling frustrating or whatever. So, how would AI impact that? I hope that people will still, with use of AI, be able to communicate well. You know, well,
Yeah.
that people can maintain their communication habits and behaviors. And I also
Mm.
hope that we can understand that AI has uses for some things, but not for others. Like
Yeah.
I'm not here to say like we can't replace coaching with AI. Maybe we can't. I don't know. But I don't
Yeah.
know that we could yet replace like empathy and listening and understanding and kind of reading between the lines and that
Mm.
depth of communication. Um, maybe we'll get there. I don't know. Sometimes I'll
Yeah.
like respond to a client and be like, how I could barely do that. That was really hard. Like, you know, anyone else who doesn't have like 10 years of experience in nutrition science and behavior change and a half PhD in the subject, I'm like, could have done like that, you know? I'll see a response from my coaches and be like, man, it's so good, you know? But I hope
Yeah.
that AI can help us streamline the things that are more burdensome or like kind of the behind the scenes. So we have like from a coaching perspective, so I have even more bandwidth to support my clients in that communication. And I hope for
Mm.
the clients, same thing. Maybe it helps make their meal planning or food choices or shopping or whatever easier so they have more bandwidth and space to like to communicate appropriately with me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Okay. Well, thank you so much for, sharing everything that you have today. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I would say on Instagram is probably where I hang out the most. So at KL
Yep.
Nutrition or on my website. Got a lot of free stuff there because again, I've been blogging for a gazillion years
Love
which
that.
is KateLymanNutrition.com.
Perfect. And I'll put those links in the video. And Kate, as always, been a pleasure. And we'll chat very shortly.
Thanks, George.